thousands and thousands of beautiful knitting patterns on Ravelry, and you're just seeing a teeny tiny selection of the most recent ones. Hello, fiber friends. Today I am sharing 8 more retired knitting pattern designers I think you should know. So if that sounds like it will be of interest to you, I hope you'll stick around. Hello, knitting friends. Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Kristen, and today we are taking another look at retired knitting pattern designers. So about 6 months ago, I did a video, maybe, about 8 retired knitting pattern designers you should know, and it was very popular. I got a lot of positive feedback, and I also got a lot of comments naming other pattern designers that, people were sad were no longer producing patterns, and just generally making suggestions about other knitting pattern designers who had retired or disappeared that maybe people would like to know. So I thought it was time to do a part 2 of this series and take a look at some more retired knitting pattern designers. So when I say retired, what I mean is they're no longer producing knitting patterns. Now, that is unlikely that they made a formal announcement about retiring. They may have just moved into other areas of the fiber arts industry, or they may have just kind of disappeared. I don't really know what happened to any of them. To be honest, I did not delve into that research. I'm sure if you were curious, you might be able to find something out. I was really just looking at designers who were no longer producing patterns, who used to produce some beautiful patterns. And because of the way sort of the knitting pattern industry has developed, we're all now very reliant on an algorithm to feed us new ideas. So even though all of these, I won't say all, but most of these patterns are still available, nobody's making them, nobody's buying them. And it's just a shame to have such a back catalog, thousands and thousands of knitting patterns that aren't getting attention. So I thought it would be fun to do a part 2. So all of these designers have at least some patterns still available. Some of them have moved their patterns elsewhere. Some of them, not all of their patterns are available, but all of them have at least some patterns available somewhere. Mostly Ravelry. Some of them might be Etsy or Love Crafts, but they're somewhere. You can still get your hands on most of them. I will also say that by retired, I basically mean they haven't published any new patterns in at least 2 years, but most of these are much longer than that. Most of them are closer to 5 years, and some of them are even longer since they've given us any new patterns. So 8 new designers to share with you today, and I have created a bundle on my Ravelry favorites so that you can go find these designers yourself. And for each of them, I will be sharing not necessarily their most popular pattern, it may be the case, but just a pattern of theirs that I particularly liked. Maybe I made it at some point, who knows. Before we jump in, I will say today I am wearing my Isle pullover. This is a pattern by Brianna Mason. I knit mine with the fiber company and make Aran. As I understand it, the fiber company is planning to go out of business, so you may be seeing some of their yarns discounted this year as they're, sort of unloading inventory. This yarn is okay. It's an Aran weight. It is very warm because it is a wool alpaca blend, but it is very, very pilly. So I just washed and depilled this, I don't know, a month, maybe month and a half ago. And it looks, unfortunately, it just really makes the yarn look ratty. So maybe you see this yarn, you're like, ooh, it's a really good deal, the price, because they're going out of business. It's not like the worst yarn I've ever used, but I probably would not use it again. So just an FYI on that. All right, let's jump into some of our retired designers. Where shall we begin? I'm not going to do these in any particular order. So we will start with Tiny Owl Knits. If you're familiar with her, you are probably acquainted with the Hexapuff blankets. I'll pop a little photo in here. This was probably her most popular pattern. It's just a series of hexagons filled with fiberfill and sewn together to make sort of a quilty puffy blanket. At some point I thought I was going to make one of these. I started making the Hexapuffs and it just never happened, but I know many people made some lovely Hexapuff blankets and they do look very cozy. But she actually has 82 patterns that all or most seem to still be available on Ravelry. They are very, I want to say like mythological, wilderness, witchcraft kind of vibes. They're definitely sort of a more ethereal forest witch kind of aesthetic, if that is something that you are interested in. But there are quite a lot, mostly accessories. And so the one in particular I wanted to show you is the Woodsy Association. I believe there's also a Woodsy Association 2, but this particular set are these adorable mittens with little forest creatures on them. It says, the raucous little band of woodland animals that will gather around you for fighting crime. So that's handy. So these are all sort of little wristlets with, so the pattern is written for intarsia, but you can also, it says, opt for duplicate stitch instead. The particular animals are badger, raccoon, wolf, owl, and stag. And they are just darling. These are knit in a fingering weight yarn. In particular, she uses Knit Picks palette, which is generally speaking a good choice for this kind of project because they have so many colors, and the palette is a very reasonably priced yarn. This particular pattern is available on Ravelry for $7.99 US. And again, it includes all of those little animals there, and it includes 4 sizes as well. So really adorable, and I love that one. But as I said, she's got 82 patterns on here. Lots of them are very adorable. You know, a lot of them are very cutesy. There's nothing very serious going on here in general, but they are still really cute. She's got a hood pattern that I think would be kind of really popular right now with the hood renaissance that is going on. She's got a lot of stuff that's kind of mommy and me, kid and adult versions. Lots of a little bit Harry Potter influenced, but you know, this was before we found out that J.K. Rowling is a horrible person. And overall, just a very cute sort of whimsical witch kind of aesthetic that I think is darling. And, you know, we can all use a little bit of whimsy in our lives these days. So if that is your vibe, I would definitely check her out again. That is Tiny Owl Knits. So kind of a very specific aesthetic, but absolutely darling. Or you can go ahead and try that Hexapuff blanket, and good luck to you if you do. Next up, we have Teresa Gregorio. She has not published a new pattern since 2018, so that is almost 8 years. And the last set of patterns she did was a collection inspired by, I'm like holding it, but I want my brain to work. A collection in collaboration with another designer who I think may also be retired. I should look into that. Inspired by Twin Peaks. So this was quite a while ago. I remember I reviewed the collection on my blog at the time. We were still blogging. And yeah, that other designer is also retired. So that's Lee Kokari Swift, who is also retired, it looks like. So at the time, I blogged a review of this collection of patterns, even though I had never seen Twin Peaks, and I still haven't. I watched like 1 or 2 episodes to kind of get the vibe. But even if you were not into Twin Peaks, she has a lot of really cute stuff in her Ravelry store. Still over 100 designs are here. And one thing of hers that I definitely made was this adorable pumpkin dishcloth, just because it was so cute. I don't use dishcloths. I just thought it was a darling and I wanted an excuse to make a little pumpkin. And another pattern of hers that I definitely made, and definitely it no longer fits me, is the TPCT, which is the perfect crop top. So I definitely made one of these. If I can find a picture, I will throw it in here. Probably not. It's been a very long time and it certainly no longer fits me. But I did make one once. So this was just a really cute pattern this was published back in April 2016, obviously for the perfect crop top. It was just easily embellished because it was all over stockinette. So I believe I added a lateral braid to mine between sort of the stockinette body and the ribbed hem. This simple pattern gives you the tools to create the crop top of your dreams. It is written with both top-down and bottom-up constructions. And it says there are also instructions for the following modifications: 3/4 length sleeves, center front decreases, because as it's done, it's with evenly distributed decreases, and blank charts for your own cables, lacework, or color work designs. And this pattern includes from 27.5 to 61-inch bust, which was a very generous sizing, particularly at that time. She does have all kinds of adorable patterns though, and the one I wanted to show you is one that I unfortunately definitely had in my queue and I just never made it. And that is the Lady Bat. So I love this. This would be perfect for spring, summer, light, and I think I even bought yarn for this. So this is knit in Shine Sport, which is a Knit Picks cotton rayon yarn. I may have actually started this and never finished it. I think I did. I think it was yellow. I don't wear yellow. I don't know why I did that. It was like a really bright yellow too. And I would never, I don't know what I was thinking. So this pattern is about 13 years old, and I believe it was published in Knits, which was a magazine that was published by Alison Dykhuizen back then. Oh, it seems like a million years ago, but it was really cute, just so airy, springy. Love it. Still love it. Maybe I will actually make it someday. As I said, I'm pretty sure I started this, which means I must have the pattern somewhere. But this would be perfect for today. This doesn't, to me, read outdated at all. This is a great beach top. Love this one. So again, that is Teresa Gregorio and her Lady Bat pattern. She published under the name Canary Knits, and unfortunately we haven't heard much from her since 2018. All right, another designer who was very busy sort of back in the early days when I was sort of just getting into pattern designing. So this probably was in the early 2010s, is Alex Tinsley. She, I think, was probably best known for hats. She did lots of hats and other kinds of accessories, but definitely the hats. And she has over 145 designs here on Ravelry. She has not published anything, let's see, since it looks like 2018 as well. So she has been MIA for about 8 years. This is the designer who, she has removed her patterns from Ravelry. They are still available on Lovecrafts, however. So the link below in the bundle is to her Ravelry page, and that will actually take you over to her Lovecrafts. So you can find a lot of these things over there. So unfortunately, because her patterns have been removed from Ravelry, that means we got a lot of blanks here for her designs. But you can still see a fair number of them and get an idea for her aesthetic. As I recall, she published a collection of patterns that were like apocalypse inspired. Doomsday Knits, projects for the apocalypse and beyond. So if that's sort of your aesthetic, you can look into that. But as I said, she has over 145 patterns here, very hat heavy, but lots of really cute stuff. So if you hop over to her Lovecrafts page, this is where you can see, actual photos of everything. And the pattern of hers that I wanted to highlight is the Howl Cat. And that is because this is a hat/cowl. So it can be worn as a cowl, or the top of it can be cinched together so it can also be worn as a hat. It's just very clever. It is double-sided. It has like 2 different layers. It's a cat, it's a cowl, it's a hat, it's a howl cat. cozy and versatile accessory that converts from a cowl into a hat in just a few seconds. And it's also reversible. So if you're kind of into these knits that can work as more than one thing, I think this is really creative. And I think more recently we've seen more stuff like this, but at the time this was published, it was, I think, pretty innovative. We weren't seeing a lot of this kind of creativity so much in patterns. So I really just wanted to highlight that one. But overall, if you are a hat person, definitely you want to check her out. She just has so many of them, all very, like, there's colors, there's stripes, there's lace, there's just all kinds of different techniques and different styles. If you are an accessory lover or someone who is fond of apocalyptic aesthetic, then you will definitely want to check that out. Again, that one is Alex Tinsley. Another designer who it seems has actually been retired for much longer than I remember is Eleanor Brown, who was publishing under the name Exercise Before Knitting. And she hasn't published anything since 2013. That seems like quite a while ago. But what she did at the time was a lot of really beautiful color work. Now, she did other stuff as well, cables, you know, textured knits, etc. But she was really, really talented with her color work designs, particularly accessories. She has, let's see, 59 patterns, and they are, as far as I know, all still available on Ravelry. Yes, maybe not every single one, but the vast majority look to still be available here on Ravelry. So the pattern I wanted to point out is one that I know I had in my queue at the time, but I was not a very experienced knitter and I did not feel like I was ready for it. And then over the years, you know, other stuff just pushed it further and further back in the queue until it disappeared. And that is the Vespergile mittens. I love these because I love argyle, absolutely love it. But usually argyle requires intarsia, which I detest. I always think it looks crappy. Not when other people do it, just when I do it. It never looks right. It always looks sloppy. I am not interested in intarsia, and these are not intarsia. They are stranded color work. So I will say this is only available in one size, but it's a free Ravelry download. So these are just so cute. If you like argyle, if you are comfortable with color work, these are such a cute choice. And this is a pattern that was published way back in October 2008. So that's, you know, only a year after I had started knitting. And I just never tried them, but maybe I will. Maybe I am ready. But she has a fair number of other color work patterns sort of in the same vein. And then again, other kinds of designs as well, but the color work in particular really stands out. And, you know, she was very in demand at the time. She's got some designs published in a number of different books. So it's a real shame that she is no longer sharing patterns with us. But that one again is Eleanor Brown if you are into color work. Next up, we have Sarah Wilson, who is perhaps better known as the Sexy Knitter. She also began making these sort of like knitter's tool tins that were very popular. But as you might imagine from that name, she was designing patterns that were a little more revealing, perhaps a little more close fitting, not all of them, but that's sort of, you know, in line with her brand at the time. And it looks like she hasn't published anything new since 2020, which unbelievably was 6 years ago. So as I said, she's got definitely some pieces that are kind of lingerie inspired, some stuff that is more bodycon. She also has some stuff that is a little more, I don't know, normie. She just has a wide variety of styles too. A lot of sort of lace and eyelet, but not exclusively. The piece that I want to highlight for you, although she really does have so many pretty things, is this beautiful Principessa dress. I would never knit this. I would never knit a dress. It would take forever. And this open back I would not wear. This does not work for me, but it's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. It's so well done. You can see she's got, you know, the shaping on the front, shaping at the hips, shaping at the butt. Just, it looks So beautiful. It is so well done. And then that lace, just stunning. This is a really stunning piece. The pattern includes 6 sizes and it is available for $6. This is still available on Ravelry. Okay, so it is knit with a yarn held double. It looks like it's a silk and a light fingering held double. There, it's Anzula Luxury Fibers Breeze, which is a silk linen lace weight, and then Anzula Milky Way, which is milk fiber and superwash merino, and that's a fingering weight. Okay, so this is a dress knit in maybe sport weight on a US 3. This is going to take a long time, but it is so beautiful. It is so well done. Absolutely stunning. How many people have made this dress? It has 52 projects on here. Definitely an undertaking, but it's beautiful. Really stunning. It is really a shame that Sarah is not designing anymore because she really, really had a gift for some of this, as I said, more flirty, feminine pieces. And she does have some stuff on here that's a little more accessible. You know, a backless fingering weight dress is probably a pretty limited market for that, but she has some other lovely pieces on here. 84 designs in total. So if you are looking for sort of more, not all, but more feminine knits, that is going to be a choice for you. So again, that is Sarah Wilson, the Sexy Knitter. All right. Next up, we have Pamela Wynn, was publishing as Flint Knits back in the day. She has 158 designs on here, so she's quite a prolific designer, but it looks like she hasn't published anything new since about 2017. And her last gift to us was a menswear collection. So 6 menswear sweater patterns, but it has been quite a while, almost 10 years it looks like. But as I said, she has 158 designs, so she has a lot of stuff on here. She's published in a number of different books. There's a whole list of them here. She was publishing a lot of designs with Juniper Moon Farm. She's got things published in magazines. Just a very eclectic aesthetic. I can't kind of identify anything specific. You know, she's got texture, she's got color, she's got simpler stuff. But the pattern in particular I want to point out is one that I did knit and I never wore because I screwed up the neckline and ripped it out and reknit it, and it still wouldn't go over my head. And that's really sad. And that is the Aunt Fred. So I knit this probably relatively short. This was published in October 2013. I probably knit it, you know, a year or so after that, maybe. And it was my first time steeking, and the steeking part went more or less okay. But then you pick up this shawl collar around the neck. And I picked it up and I knit it, and the neck hole opening was too small, so I ripped the whole thing out. I did it again, and it's still, so I've never worn this. Maybe I should try it a third time. I'm a more experienced knitter now. Maybe I can figure it out. But I do think this is a lovely pattern. So this was part of the Rhinebeck sweater, which was a collection of sweater patterns published by Isolde, I guess, back in October 2013. And I loved the relatively simple color work on this. I don't remember a lot about knitting the sleeves. It does look a little tricky, but I don't remember that part being particularly difficult. I just had a lot of trouble with the neck. So this is very generously sized. So it goes from a 30 to a 60-inch bust circumference. And it is knit in a sport weight yarn. So I had used Quince & Company Chickadee for mine, and I had a lovely pale yellow, almost green, and then a darker green. But I have it somewhere. I'm gonna look for it. All right, so here it is. This is my Aunt Fred. Love it. I still love it. I love the colors. The sleeves do look a little wonky. Again, I was a much newer knitter back then. I've also got a stitch marker in here from a dropped stitch right there. But as you can see, this is not, it's not working. Um, I probably don't have any more of this yarn left. I mean, I probably just have gotten rid of it in the years since. You know, this was a lot of work. And then to knit that neckline twice and have no luck with it, it was pretty disappointing. And even if I did have this yarn, I'm sure this would not fit me anymore, but I still think it is an adorable design. And just one of Pamela Wynn's many, many designs. So as I said, she's got, you know, all kinds of stuff. Texture, color, cables, anything you might be looking for. A lot of really beautiful designs. And I'm sure you will have much better luck than I did if you want to knit your own Aunt Fred or any of these other ones. So again, Pamela Wynn, Flint Knits, nothing from her in nearly 10 years. Right, next up we have Neonits or Melissa, I'm going to say Whirly, but it could just be Whirl, I'm not sure, who was quite a busy bee designer back in the day, but she hasn't given us anything new since 2018. She does have over 90 designs here on Ravelry, and again, they kind of run the gamut. Shawls, hats, other accessories, sweaters, cables, lace, whatever your personal preference might be, she probably has something. She was published in a number of books. She even has also a sweater in the Rhinebeck sweater collection. I remember, let's see, I had this book, Brave New Knits. If you can get your hands on Brave New Knits, I wonder if I still have that somewhere. That was a great book. It had just a lot of the designers that were popular at the time it was published in August 2010. A lot of them were my favorites at the time. A lot of her, older stuff is probably a little bit outdated for our current aesthetic. It's, the sweaters are longer than we usually wear, and the styles are just, very early 2000s, I suppose. But a lot of her stuff is definitely still very wearable today, I think. But the one in particular I wanted to highlight is actually the last pattern it looks like she published, and that is Glowick. I'm not 100% sure on that pronunciation, which she published in Wool People Volume 12. And I think this is just a beautiful all over lace, but not, looks like a pretty easy to memorize pattern in a garment structure that is not overly complicated. I think this is knit in a fingering weight wool, but I think if you opted for, I don't know, like maybe cotton merino from Knitting for Olive and make this a little bit lighter, this would be cute for the summer, cooler summer nights and things like that. So it says designed for transitional weather, all over lace, subtle transparency, worked in the round from the bottom up. And then the sleeves are also worked in the round. So pretty standard drop shoulder construction. I just think it's, there's not a lot of shaping going on here. So shaping in lace can be really difficult, hard to keep track of. And in this case, that's not something that you would really need to worry about because the shaping is relatively minimal. It's designed to be sort of oversized and boxy. Just think it's a really interesting looking textured pattern that I think is really very versatile. And as I said, that is the last pattern that she published back in June 2018. But she's got 90 pieces here to look over. Many of them are very popular. So let's see, what's her most popular pattern? Most favorited first. That would be Truss, which was also published in Wool People, which is a relatively straightforward drop shoulder cardigan, and also Bronwyn, which is a lovely cabled pullover, also available from Brooklyn Tweed. So she has something for everyone. A lot of the stuff is a little bit older and perhaps outdated, but definitely you can find something here, I think, for everybody. And I really love that last piece. And again, that is still available directly on Ravelry. So you can check that out. Again, that is Melissa Whirl, or Neonits. And our last designer is, again, one that was very popular and just disappeared. I don't know what happened to her. She has, oh my goodness, 448 designs on Ravelry. And that is Cesaly Glowick McDonald. Again, someone who was very popular when in the early days of my personal knitting journey. She hasn't published anything since 2020. So sadly, 6 years without her, but over 400 patterns to go through here. And again, just sort of whatever your aesthetic, a lot of texture. I would say a good mix of cardigans and pullovers. Some of it, a little, with 400 some patterns that started, let's see. Okay, it looks like her earliest patterns were published around 2007. So, when you've got patterns that are nearly 20 years old, some of them, yes, are definitely going to be a little bit outdated, but especially some of the more recent stuff and some of those sort of more timeless pieces, you will definitely find some of that here. And again, with that many publications or that many patterns, you can of course assume that she's been published in many books and magazines and really just was all over the place. Once upon a time, it says 100 books and magazines that she was published in. So something for everybody here. Her most popular pattern was this cowl neck sweater published in August 2010. This is Idlewood. Top down short sleeve tunic with a huge cowl. Lovely. However, the one I particularly wanted to highlight was the Chelsea skirt. It doesn't have a date on this, but I remember seeing this sort of in the early years that I was knitting, and I loved it. I never made one. Even now, I'm not sure 100% how a skirt, would really wear in terms of knit fabric, but I just love it. I still love it. I still love the aesthetic of this skirt. So this is knit in a worsted weight. Let's see. And it is available in the book New England Knits. It looks like you can also probably buy it directly from Interweave Knits. It just has that little lace peeking out from underneath. I don't know. It's definitely wasn't published in the 90s, but it reads very 90s to me, and I love it. I still love it. I definitely don't think I could pull this off, in my middle age, but I still think it is adorable. She also had a sweater in the Rhinebeck sweater book. So again, that's another one. If you could get your hands on that, that really had a great collection of sweaters from a really wonderful selection of designers publishing back in 2013. I would think I would wear this now. So this is the apple cider donut. If you've been to Rhinebeck, you know about the apple cider donuts. I love this big oversized collar. I think I would maybe like this as a pullover, but with the buttoned collar. I think that would look cute. But she's got designs of all different kinds, pretty much anything you could want. You definitely want to check her out. But she's got all kinds of stuff. And as I said, we haven't heard from her in about 6 years, and it's really a shame. But she, 444 designs. She really left us with a lot to work with. So if you like her aesthetic, you've got a lot to go through here. So again, that one, Cesaly Glowick McDonald. All right, friends, there you have it. 8 more retired knitting pattern designers that have beautiful patterns that you don't want to miss out on. Even if these particular designers are not your style, generally I just think it's nice to have a reminder that there are thousands and thousands of beautiful knitting patterns on Ravelry, and you're just seeing a teeny tiny selection of the most recent ones when you're scrolling on Instagram or you're looking through the Hot Right Now or whatever. So sometimes, take a break from what's the latest and greatest. If you look back in this huge back catalog that is available on Ravelry, there is so much there. And of course, some of it, yes, it's going to be a little outdated, but a lot of these designers have created some beautiful, timeless pieces that will still work really well today. So Just a reminder, don't forget to check out some of those past designers. They really left us a lot of beautiful stuff. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. If you found it entertaining or educational, I hope you will give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. New knitting videos here every Saturday. If you're looking for me on social media, you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Media Peruana, and I will see you soon in another video.